Hallo.
Neuzugang.
Ich helfe dir.
Danke.
Bin gleich da. Zara ist krank. Wir sind heute nur zu zweit mit der Erstsemesterschülerin.
Welcome, Petra Volpe. Your film Heldin just premiered at the Berlinale. It's also known internationally as Late Shift. Can you tell us more about your film?
The movie tells the story of a nurse, one shift, and her race against time. And it's inspired by a lot of research and a book that I read, written by a German nurse. I was thinking about the topic before COVID because I lived with a nurse for a really long time, and I just noticed how the circumstances of her work got worse and worse. There was less and less time for the patients. There was more and more time pressure on her job. There was more and more requests also from insurers to measure what she's doing. And I think nursing is only to some extent measurable, but all the human interactions are something that's more fragile, that's less, you can't measure it in time. So for me, the topic was a political topic. It concerned me as a feminist, but as a filmmaker, I thought this is a topic that needs to be talked about and belongs to the big screen. And because it entails a lot of drama, it's very existential what happens in hospitals.
Over 8 million hours of overtime work, of that care work, that goes a bit unnoticed, isn't really valued for the work that it is. Your film is also a spotlight to that, to like celebrate these nurses and their work?
Yes, I mean, definitely the film is a love declaration to nurses and the work of nursing, because I think in general it's under-respected and undervalued. And the fact that nurses do so much overtime tells you a lot. Like, it's just assumed that because they're women, it's predominantly a woman's job. 80% of the people who work in nursing are women, and it's very typical and symptomatic that the job isn't valued like other jobs.
We did vote on it in 2021 in November that there's supposed to be upcoming changes. Those are slow to be implemented. Maybe there's a bit of pressure coming from the public now when they see your film?
Yes, I hope that the film can raise awareness.
Yeah.
For the people themselves, because we are all potential patients. So it's a topic that concerns us all. And there's increasing a lot of violence against nurses, and people are very impatient. And I hope that when they're in the hospital the next time, they don't think it's her fault that the tea isn't coming within half an hour or 5 minutes. And it's a systemic problem because the wards are very often intentionally understaffed. To save money, and I think it's very unfair towards the nurses, but also towards the patients.
And in the film, it's like each time we open a door, it's like a door to Narnia. You never know what you're gonna expect. So that makes a really thrilling movie with all of the characters that we touch. How do you go about finding the more serious, the sad moments, but also the humor?
Because it's life, life. The hospital is almost like a mirror of the world outside. But I also, for me, a very important quote is Susan Sontag, who said, when you become ill, you become citizen of another country. And in a way, the hospital is a microcosm. It's this other country where all these people gather who are all in a way caught in their illness and solitude. And so all the patient stories are very much inspired by the research I did, but also my own fears, like the guy with the dog. I have a dog, so for me, my biggest worry would be my dog. So all the patients have little parts of me, are inspired by research. So little by little, this whole ensemble of characters came together when I was writing them.
And you have Leonie Benesch in the lead role here, someone who is believable in every job she does. I believed her completely when she was a teacher in das Lehrerzimmer. Yeah. And now here she just kind of slips into that. With a lot of these longer shots, going about staging all of that with your great cinematographer, Judith Kaufmann as well. How do you go about planning all of those sequences out?
Well, those are very complex sequences because it's the camera, the decisions we take for the camera, the path the camera takes. Our main character, Leonie, Floria, is leading that journey of the camera, but at the same time, a lot of things are going on. And so it's like a whole big choreography that we worked on just for this one sequence. We worked on 3 days just to rehearse it over and over again so that everybody knows where to be and what to do. So it's very exciting because you can't make a mistake, like one mistake and you have to start over. And it was very important for us that the film has a flow in the beginning. because the character of Gloria, she starts out very motivated. She's full of energy. She thinks she can actually master the shift. She can do all the things she needs to do, and we wanted to reflect that with the camera work. That it's a flow. It's not fragmented, and only little by little, as her shift falls apart, the camera is more fragmented.
And the editing work by Hans-Jörg Weisbrach, who just recently got his award at the Indie Spirit Award for his work on September 5. Are you in the editing room a lot alongside him, figuring out when to break moments apart, or is a lot of that 100% planned out already when you yell action?
No, I mean, editing is always, that's actually when the movie then comes together. And of course, to find the rhythm of the movie, Hans-Jörg is a very, very important key creative person on my side. And we take these decisions together, but he is quite on his own for the rough cut because I need distance, and I think it's better if I'm not there because I think it's interesting what he discovers in the material, and I always appreciate this really fresh take. And then we work on it together very closely, but he's an amazing partner to have, like Judith Kaufmann. Those are really two very important people for me.
And when you work with people who maybe aren't professional actors, or they work more in theater, for a bunch of those roles that you casted here, are there a bit more like findings there of improvisation, or is a lot of it that you find like in the scripted moments still?
It's very scripted. It just seems natural, but in this case, because the rhythm, it was so clear that the movie needs a very particular rhythm, and we can't dilly-dally around. And it's also, the rhythm is completely tied to the nurse. Like, she enters a room, she has just X amount of time with the patient. So in this very short time, we have to tell this audience as much about the patient as possible. We need all the tools, filmmaking. So because we encounter the patients only with Leonie, and we have only a very set amount of time with that person, we need all the tools that filmmaking gives us to tell a story about that person, that gives us an idea and helps us connect to them emotionally. So the scenes with the patients were very scripted and rehearsed, and the actors knew exactly what to do and what we were going for, actually.
You were shooting for, I believe, like 27 days?
30 days.
30 days, and you did have a kind of empty hospital floor that you had to, I guess, fill up as well.
Yeah.
Again. Did that give you the liberty to rehearse a bunch as for the camera, but also with the actors as well? Was that a benefit to the production?
Yeah, definitely. It was almost a studio situation, but not studio. So it had the benefits of having, it was our playground basically. But we had to rebuild the whole hospital because the rooms were empty. So we had to get everything back. We had to get beds from Germany, then they didn't fit through the doors, and we had to do, it was very complicated to equip a hospital, and that's where production design was very important. It needed to be an attractive place. I didn't want the hospital to be an antagonistic place. I didn't want it to be run down, which is an experience that a lot of nurses have in other places. So it had to work for the cinema, and then it had to really be believable as a hospital. But the benefit was, of course, also that we were able to rehearse and go through the rooms and really connect the rooms and find the flow of the movie.
The issues is not that the place is wrong, it's the understaffing, and it's something that we are facing in the next couple of years in Switzerland, I think worldwide as well. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's, as we see in the statistics in the end of the movie, it's a global crisis, and it's not solved, for example, by Western countries importing nurses from poorer countries. That creates another problem there. I think it's a very pressing social and political issue. It needs change fast, especially in Germany. It's extremely acute. In Switzerland, we had this initiative, and they're trying to implement the changes, but it's going extremely slowly because it's not where politicians lie their priorities and where they want to spend the money. But I think the money needs to be spent with the nurses. It's where the care happens and where the outcome is created for patients, and it's extremely important.
And is it mainly an issue in countries where the aging keeps going up and up, and there's less younger people kind of filling it up in those spaces of healthcare, or is it just that less people are choosing the profession?
You have everything. Like, for example, in America, it's not a question of there's enough nurses in America, but they don't hire them. In Switzerland, there is a shortage of people who want to learn nursing, but the ones who do learn it, they leave after 4 years because they're already so burned out.
Yeah.
So it's a very unhealthy mix of causes that, and then I think in the end, most of it is really that hospitals try to save money by understaffing wards because they think the job can be done by less people, which actually is a false narrative. The more nurses, the more trained nurses there are on a ward, the better the outcome in general economically. That it is. Like, there's millions of people, like a society saves millions of dollars by hiring good nurses.
Is it also in addition to maybe if they're even looking for jobs, they get burned out, but then also the wages are still really low for nurses overall?
Yeah, I mean, the wages in Germany, I personally find outrageous. In Switzerland, the nurses are paid a little better, but still not enough. And the interesting thing was when I was researching, I mean, wage was definitely a topic for most nurses, but most frustration came from not having enough time for their patients.
And it ultimately comes back to that caretaking, to having the time to do that. And I think your movie perfectly illustrates that dilemma of running out of time, but never wanting to rush and not give a patient the full attention. Do you have a favorite of the patients or of the characters? I assume an audience favorite is Heldin.
Yeah. I think I feel connected to all my patients. There's a little part of me in all of them, even the bad ones. And they're like, usually when I write characters, they're all like my kids. And I can't really decide which one I like best. I think they're all reflecting some aspect of myself or an aspect of people I love. So I think they're all unique in their way.
Mademoiselle, sind Sie hier morgen?
Ja, bin ich.